You know that feeling when an email from your landlord hits your inbox and your stomach drops before you even open it? Last year, my cousin got her lease renewal in Brampton. Her rent went up $400. She called me at 11 p.m., literally crying, asking if she should just finally buy a place. Everyone keeps telling her to buy, often pointing to the national average home price, which right now sits at about $673,000. But this chart shows why that number is completely lying to you. Averages hide the extremes. On one side, Toronto and Vancouver average well over $1 million. On the other side, Edmonton sits at a more accessible $470,000. When you base your life choices on that middle number, you end up doing phantom math. You build a budget for a reality that doesn't actually exist in your specific neighborhood. The rent versus buy debate in Canada is not a universal math equation. The right answer flips entirely depending on your postal code. Look at the market as it sits right now in 2026. The Bank of Canada has held rates steady, and the best 5-year fixed mortgage is hovering right around 4.04%. The borrowing environment is stable but expensive. That golden era of 1.5% mortgage rates is gone, and no amount of wishing brings it back. Because of those rates, entering a major housing market requires serious cash today. If you buy a home over $1 million in Toronto or Vancouver, you legally need a 20% down payment to avoid mandatory mortgage default insurance. That is $200,000 in cash, gone, before you even touch a doorknob. You have to weigh locking up that massive chunk of capital against keeping it liquid and growing elsewhere. Panic buying a house just to escape a high rent payment ignores the immense upfront cash risk required to play the game today. Let's run the actual numbers for Tier 1 cities, where property valuations have completely detached from what average people actually earn. Take $1 million home in Toronto. After your $200,000 down payment, your mortgage at 4.04% over 25 years is about $4,200 a month. Add in property taxes, insurance, and the industry standard for maintenance, and your absolute minimum carrying cost is close to $6,000 every single month. This matrix compares ownership against a comparable 2-bedroom rental, around $2,900. That leaves a massive gap of $3,000 a month. That delta represents sheer cash flow. A recent study confirmed Vancouver renters save about $2,300 a month compared to buyers. Renting in these cities is mathematically superior. But there's a catch. It only works if you have the robotic discipline to invest those savings, instead of letting them bleed into nicer dinners and slightly bigger cars. Now, flip the script entirely and look at Alberta, where the middle class can still actually buy in. In Calgary, the average home is around $642,000. The down payment is lower, and your total monthly carrying cost sits closer to $3,600. Renting is around $1,900, meaning the gap is much tighter, only about $1,700. The math heavily favors buying because you build equity in an appreciating market. But the trade-off is anchoring your financial life to global oil prices. Then you have Montreal, which operates in its own unique universe as a shielded market. Quebec's strict rent control rules protect existing tenants, keeping one-bedrooms around $1,500. Those artificially low monthly costs make the financial leap to homeownership incredibly hard to justify if you already have a lease. Geography dictates your strategy. A terrible financial move in Ontario might be the perfect wealth-building move in Alberta. The loudest argument you'll hear from the renting is throwing money away crowd is about building equity. And they are absolutely right to bring it up. But they ignore the alternative, the rent and invest strategy. This plots forced home equity against compound growth from dropping rental savings into index funds. Historically, the math works perfectly. But practically, almost nobody does this. Most people skip TFSA contributions, but nobody skips their mortgage payment. Home ownership forces you to save. Both paths have hidden costs. Renters face the constant anxiety of a landlord selling the building or hiking the rent on a new lease. Buyers face a different nightmare. When a bad winter causes a leaking roof or a condo board issues a $50,000 special assessment, it comes entirely out of your pocket. The true trade-off is this. Buying forces you to save while exposing you to massive, unexpected physical liabilities. Renting preserves your capital, but strips away your long-term control over your living space. So how do you actually decide? Stop guessing based on pride or what your parents did in the 80s. Here is a strict mathematical framework to figure out exactly what you should do. Step 1. Can you realistically save the 20% down payment? If you're 28, scraping together $200,000 while paying current rent could take 10 years of putting your life on hold. Step 2. The 5-year rule. Transaction costs like land transfer taxes and legal fees eat about 5% of the home's value when you sell. If you're moving in under 5 years, renting wins mathematically. Step 3. Life stability. Signing a 25-year mortgage when your career or relationship might completely change in 24 months is an unnecessary financial anchor. Rent through your transitions. Step 4 is the price-to-rent ratio. This formula shows you how to divide the home price by the annual rent of a comparable place. The threshold is 20. Anything above that generally favors renting. Toronto sits at a ratio of about 30, heavily favoring renters. Calgary sits around 28, still high, but the gap is closing. And step 5, the honesty test. If you rent and pocket that monthly gap, will you actually invest it every single month without fail? If your time horizon is short, your capital is low, or your discipline is poor, this framework makes the choice for you automatically. If the framework tells you to rent for now, you need a bridge strategy. Enter the First Home Savings Account, or FHSA. Every renter who eventually wants to buy should max this out. It gives you $40,000 in tax-free room, letting you build a massive runway that protects your down payment capital from the CREA as it grows. So here is the final verdict. If you are in Toronto or Vancouver, renting is mathematically sound. Optimize your capital, invest the difference, and ignore the societal pressure to buy at the absolute top of the market. If you are in Alberta, capitalize on those lower entry barriers to buy, assuming your life is stable. And if you are in Montreal, cling tightly to your rent-controlled unit until the math proves you should leave. Real estate success in Canada today isn't universally tied to owning property. True wealth comes from matching your housing strategy directly to your specific life stage and your specific postal code.